Good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, respective radio stations island-wide, online viewers, Tel TV Plus Channel 15 viewers. I'm Relika Roach and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, June 26, 2024. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunication, Grisha Heliga Maarten, to address you. Minister Heliga Maarten, you have the floor.
Good morning to my fellow colleague. Good morning to the members of the media, and above all, good morning to St. Martin. I want to start by addressing the ongoing issue of flight availability to Curaçao, which remains a priority. As you're aware, the recent bankruptcy of Jet Air has significantly disrupted travel between Curaçao and St. Martin. In response, Winair has been authorized to increase its flight frequency to Curaçao by 4 additional flights over the next 2 weeks. However, we recognize that the short-term measure is insufficient. We are actively working on making this increase in flights a permanent arrangement. Winair is ready to maintain the extra flight throughout the entire summer, not just for the initial 14-day period. This effort aligns with the multilateral protocol signed between Curaçao and St. Martin in 2012, which allows for flexible flight frequency between the territories without stipulated limitations. Our goal is to restore normal travel conditions as soon as possible, enabling our residents to commute between the two islands as they did before.
On Monday, I announced something that has to do with vendors that are plying their trade on Pondville.
Yeah.
These vendors, I can tell you, have seen a number of fines. Some of them were asked for bribes. I contacted your office, and at that time you said you were not aware of the case. Today is Wednesday. Do you have an update on this? And can you tell us if the ministry will facilitate all these vendors by providing them with vendors permit? Most of them have sole proprietorship. Will the ministry facilitate them so that they can continue plying their trade?
Thank you, Bibi, for your question. And I remember discussing this with you on Monday, and I stated that it was very, very vague, as I really wanted to know who the vendors were. I asked you other questions as well. Of course, you were not able to divulge that information, but it does have my attention. I did speak to the department head, and I remember returning the discussion with you was to state that once you have a sole proprietorship, it is with a fixed address. So that's where you do your business when you have a sole proprietorship. When you have a vendor's license, it can allow you to move around. Now, if these vendors, if their sole proprietorship is saying one address and they're at another place, then it's an issue. If they would like to have a vendor's license, then I would advise them to come to us and request that. But for now, remember what you gave me was very vague. You gave me you told me, I think last week it happened. So it is right now under review to find out exactly what went on, and I'm expecting a report. I don't have a full report as yet.
As a minister that just took office, these vendors that were contacted or approached last week and fined, they're not selling yesterday. Some of them start selling years now, even before the pandemic, for example, in Costulet's parking lot. And then they're selling now on Pondville Road. Why now? I mean, for 4 years, or let's say 5 years, these people have been plying their trade. Nobody approached them. Why now?
As soon as I receive that report, I'll let you know why now. I'm still waiting for that report, but thank you for your concern.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Bibi. At this time, I would like to invite Stephen Cerulean of PJDC Radio. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Deputy Prime Minister, good morning. Mr. Good morning to you as well. Minister, you are in the process of establishing this agriculture department.
Agriculture, yes.
Yeah, can you help us to understand as to the timeline that you're looking for to have this established, considering the political climate at this time?
Well, agriculture has been one of my main political drive for the last election, and I jumped right into it as I got into office. And what I did, I'm doing right now, I'm just basically doing a fact-finding mission. I can tell you plain out, Stephen, I don't have green fingers. I still have to learn how to plan, but I understand the importance of food security. That's mainly where we're going with it, food security. So what I've done in the last couple of weeks or months since I'm here, we were invited to Statia, and that's where we had sent a delegation because decided for myself I will not be traveling the first 2 months because I'm still in orientation phase. I'm still learning about everything in the department. So I sent a delegation there to seek to receive some information about food security. My next step then was to visit with farmers. You can visit my my social media page and you'll see all the different farmers that I'm visiting. I'm going to be also visiting I'm also going to be visiting some farms for that has animal husbandry as well here on the Dutch side to find out what they are, what we can do legislatively to help them. Next week, the plan is for me to go with a delegation to St. Kitts. Why I chose St. Kitts? First and foremost, it's near. And secondly, they are part of the 25 by 2025 UN mission, which is cutting import by 25%, food import by 25%. They've come a long way in agriculture. As soon as I've pulled all this information, I will sit with the agriculture department and define what we want with agriculture. That's going to be my next step hopefully in the next 2 weeks. And then we will find a way internally with P&O to see how we can create our own agriculture department and maybe also fine tune where we want to take it for food security, how far we want to go with subsidizing the farmers that we have. We only have 5 farms in St. Maarten on the Dutch side. So, I mean, that's where I'm actually right now, right in between doing just mainly my fact-finding mission. Okay.
Thank you, Minister. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
I just piggyback off of something he just said. When you do your research with what's happening to the vendors, maybe you can tell us also if the farmers, for example, because I know at least 1 or 2 of them, who also sell their produce on a pond field.
If they receive anything with the...
if they too would have to get the vendor's permit. Because, for example, Denisio Wyatt, we all know that he sells next to the Whitehall building. Will he now have to not only plant stuff, we're talking about food security, and then have to get a vendor's license to sell it? Or does the people have to go to his farm? I mean, these things I'd like for you to clarify when you get your answers.
I know that Denisio has a foundation.
Yes.
And that Arrowroot has a BV.
Yes.
So that too, those are 2 different dynamics there. But you're right. I think you gave me a very good suggestion there to look into. So I will be doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move my second question now is to the Minister of Romy. And I know you have multiple caps today, Minister Gums.
Bibi, we're only taking questions for the Minister of Tiat.
So you don't have any more questions for me?
Yeah, I have. Oh, Christ. I forget we're doing that. Winair.
Yes.
You mentioned the situation with Winair, and I do know that last week Winair had issues. Curacao outright refused allowing them to add the additional flights. But then they did agree, and I was told 3 months. But just now you said 2 weeks.
No, when that
What's
happened,
the objective?
I'm the one that spoke to them. I spoke to my counterpart in Curacao, Mr. Cooper, and I also spoke to the counterpart of Mr. Louis Harley in Curacao. After speaking with them, we came to an agreement based on certain conditions that we will do it for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So we're basically working out those conditions, and I cannot at this point in time divulge, but eventually I will. Yes?
Thank you, Minister. Stephen?
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Mr. Based on the bankruptcy filed by the Jet Air, can you tell us as to how many St. Maarten-born passengers were affected by this, and how many are still stranded in Curacao?
I don't know the amount per se, but I can tell you not only St. Maarten-born passengers. I have a list of kids that needs to travel. We're going to be hopefully busy discussing that in COM tomorrow, see how we can facilitate them. Some kids that need to travel for I think, a sporting event to Curacao. We have two hotels that complain. One lost about $20,000 in bookings from Curacao. So it's not only our residents and also our businesses that are feeling the pinch. That's why I made the effort to call and maybe find a way to at least alleviate for the next 2 weeks until we can resolve the additional issue. But on both sides, you have some people in Curacao, a little child that's stranded in Curacao to try to come over. But hopefully with the when there are additional flights, it can work. But the thing is, they would have to purchase it, and that's the hurtful part. But it has affected the both residential and businesses, I think, on both sides, because we also have residents here that wanted to travel for the Curacao Jazz Festival. North Sea, they're already booked with Jet Air. So that's the unfortunate issue.
Thank you, Minister. We now move on to the third round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Yes. Can you give us an idea as if Jet Air, did they disclose if they have been reimbursing passengers who bought ticket even up to the day prior to the announcement that they were declared bankrupt? We understood that even the St. Maarten agent was selling tickets for up to the day before. Do you know if these people are being reimbursed?
That I know as much as you, Bibi. I know exactly that. I know that people were selling tickets up to the day of, and that part I think the minister Pisas made the Prime Minister Pisas made a statement that he is very disappointed, and I think I would have to await their outcome on how they're going to address it there. But I know as much as you that indeed they were selling tickets up to and on the day of the announcement. So I don't have further details on that.
Thank you, Minister. Stephen?
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Mr. St. Maarten is currently preparing towards hosting the FCCA conference in October. You had some concerns regarding the FBO building and whether or not this will be finished in a timely manner. Taking into consideration the fact that we are going to have so many visitors, including private jets owners coming to St. Maarten, how likely is that building being finalized to at least accommodate all those persons arriving?
Thank you for asking me that question, Stephen. And it was more a reality check for me when I had to welcome the reps of FCCA 2 days ago, when I had to walk them through that line. I'm going to honestly say I felt embarrassed that I had to walk them through that line, how the way it looked, But I can assure you, we asked the CCO, and we asked them for the exact date in front of the reps of FCCA, and they promised us by October 8th, the arrival hall will be final. However, the FBO is a little ticklish right in between. It might not be ready. I think they're going to start just around that time with the FBO. So unfortunately not. But what we have done is what I did about 2 weeks ago. I called a meeting with the airport, the tourist office, Justice, and myself and Harbor to collaborate on the logistics, finding ways to make it seamless for when they arrive. We're looking at between 800 to 900 people. We're looking at some prime ministers from the country, so we have to have our act together by then, and the airport assured me that they will. You had another question? Yes?
Yeah, in the prior statement, you made mention that the airport wasn't aware of the fact that the FCCA will be hosted or something. How could that have been possible?
I don't know, Stephen. That happened when I went to do not a site inspection, but a visit, my introductory visit to the airport, and I sat with them after they did their presentation. My first question to them is, because I know they moved it from late September to early October. And I'm like, I'm hoping that that's the final date, because FCCA is coming. We have a delegation of 900 people coming end of October. And they were like, no, we were not aware of it. That is what prompted me to have the meeting together, because I understand events, I understand planning, I understand logistics can go wrong. And if the airport is not aware of it, then we would have had a complete situation. But now they know the urgency on it. They've assured me that by October 8th it will be final. Yep.
Thank you, Minister. Are there any further questions for Minister Heliger Maarten?
Thank you.
Okay, that does bring us to the end of that question and answer session. I would now like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, Patrice Gums, to address you. Minister Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me begin by saying what an honor it is to stand before you today, as my first day as Minister of Romi, with the additional responsibility of Deputy Prime Minister. From infrastructure, housing, permits, and most importantly to the people of St. Maarten, land, the Ministry of Romi is one of the most known and understood of all ministries. The decisions taken by the ministry impact your daily surroundings, your water and air quality, and your overall quality of life. As minister, it is my role to ensure that the actions of my ministry contribute to delivering a decent quality of life for all. As minister, my task is to manage the overall physical development of this country in a way that provides for the needs of the people without unnecessarily destroying our natural environment. Contrary to what many view as development, more and more buildings should never equal development. When that type of development leads to poor road and drainage infrastructure, pollutions of our ponds, lagoons, and oceans, and, as we see today, an energy crisis. Because we cannot, on one hand, condemn the hotel emptying their untreated waste into our waterways, but not hold ourselves accountable towards the negative contribution each of us makes on our environment. The partner throwing the empty beer bottle on the side of the road, the empty styrofoam containers carelessly tossed after enjoying a nice piece of barbecue chicken. As a small island developing country, we, St. Maarten, are vulnerable. And the impact of doing nothing to address the rampant development and lack of ownership of our collective environment will be our future burden. As such, under my mandate, strong consideration will be given to sustainable development that ensures that this decent quality of life owed and promised to you will be safeguarded. Through that end, I have already identified key areas for intervention, including the Road Fund, the establishment of the Waste Authority, and review of existing environmental policies. In addition, I will be making the necessary steps to build capacity to safeguard the sewage project and to salvage parts of the housing project, as well as having discussions around the notaries to deal with the backlog in deeds and transfers that are not related to the D-Dam arrest verdict. In conclusion, my civil servants, my team, late yesterday afternoon, I took a visit to the ministry and spoke to a few of you and heard your demotivation, your sense of not being part of something meaningful. Rest assured, rebuilding this ministry, trust, is of critical importance to not only achieving our ambitions, but to ensure your buy-in and the progress of this country. And I will do my part to address your needs as we embark on this journey together. Thank you. And please note, I'll be taking questions today only in the capacity as Minister of Romi.
Thank you, Minister Gums, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite members of the media to pose their questions. Bibi Hacha of SMN News, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Minister Gums, I have a whole lot for Vromi, very few
Wonderful.
for Prime Minister, but I'll come to you with the Vromi questions first. Minister, you just mentioned in your opening statements about the pollution, the garbage, and everything that's affecting St. Maarten. Can you tell me when exactly government will start or what will be done with the cleaning of the trenches on St. Maarten? I believe a contractor has taken government to court regarding the trench cleaning. We are already in hurricane season. When you met with your staff yesterday, did they tell you what's the status and when they will begin the district cleaning and trench cleaning?
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Bibi. Indeed, it's quite that point has been brought across by a number of persons in our community. The discussion actually started yesterday. Indeed, we are calling a meeting this week to have that decision made. Regarding the contractor taking the government to court, I am aware that there are over 20 cases pending from Brommy, and we are dealing with them actually this afternoon to figure out what is priority. If one of them is indeed the contractor doing the trenching, that's very concerning because, as we know, once the trenches are not properly prepared and cleaned, we have an issue of flooding, in particular in many areas in the island. And one of the worst things we want to have happen beyond the hurricane is water damage. So it does have my attention, and I will get back to you as soon as possible on when we will actually start the trenching and cleaning programs.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just one last point, I think I want to bring it up too as well. I was approached yesterday by the Vice President of the Front Side, Ms. Davis, regarding a island-wide cleanup that was initiated last year by the Front Side, and she also brought in the Dutch side, and I've already gave her my assurances that we will undertake that together because, again, the hurricane does not stop at the frontier, so anything we can do collectively, the trenches are all connected, so it's my intention to do that collectively with the French side as well.
Thank you, Minister. Stephen Cyrillian of PJD2, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Rich. Mr. Based on the press release you received yesterday, I can tell that you have hit the floor running or the road running. Your assessment based on your preparation towards the hurricane season, what information do you have regarding this?
Thank you, Stephen. As in, you mean general information regarding the hurricane season or specifically plans in terms of trenching, cleaning? So, no, we haven't gotten that far in our discussion. It's basically started yesterday at 2 o'clock and basically just started having general discussions with the ministry regarding exact plans for hurricane season. I'm aware we are very much in the beginning, if not towards the first month end of hurricane season. And I promise to get those plans out with a very detailed hurricane plan for the people. I think a strong communication plan is equally as important as execution, and I promise to get that to you, the people, as soon as possible. Yep.
Thank you, Minister. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Minister Gomes, I'm sure that your Chief of Staff updated you on this particular issue that I'm going to ask you, and I'd really like to get some answers. How many building permits have been cancelled and or placed on hold since your government took office?
So we actually haven't gone through and cancelled any building permits. We're actually under review of most of the building permits currently. Realizing that a number of the building permits have been issued under the previous government without the proper consultation being done. Several of those are actually part of the large case file that we have as VROMI currently. We actually have 2 meetings regarding 2 of those this week. I will not disclose exactly, of course, who they are. But again, I think the image out there is that this government and this particular ministry is trying to cancel and hold all development. That's not the case at all. I think what we're actually trying to achieve is a proper assessment of what has been permitted and does it fall within the scope of what should be environmentally correct. So for now, nothing has been cancelled. A lot of it is still under review, and we promise to get that finalized because there is a severe backlog, particularly when it comes to issues of land reissuances and transfers. That has been quite a number of calls received even before I became minister regarding those issues, and they're being tackled starting actually this afternoon.
Thank you, Minister. Stephen, you have the floor.
Mr. Earlier on, you said that you're not able to provide information based on the Prime Minister's portfolio. But I need to ask you,
of course,
taking into consideration the fact that we have the elections coming up on August 19th, are you able to provide an update in relation to voting cards?
At this time, Stephen, unfortunately not.
All right, Minister. I'm going to ask you one other question, and I'm going to remind you that while you only took the oath of office to become the Minister of Romi yesterday, you've been part of this cabinet from the inception as Minister of Plenipotentiary.
Indeed.
You spend most of the time on St. Maarten, so I assume that you have some of the answers or been updated as to day-to-day business of government. Last year, the former Minister of Finance paid out 1% of COLA to all civil servants. teachers that are working for governments, for subsidized school boards, have not yet received that. So we are going 6 months later, they're still to be paid that 1%. Government also announced that with the unions, when they had recently the problem with the unions, and they had a mini strike on the island, there were one thing that government did not address, and that's the 2% COLA. As reporters, these teachers and civil servants, they ask us every day, are we going to get our COLA, and when are we going to get our COLA payments? Yes, they got their vacation allowance as promised, but can you at least tell us something about the COLA?
With regards to subsidized schools?
Not only subsidized school. The COLA, the 2%, is for all civil servants.
Okay.
So we're talking about the all civil servants, including teachers for public school. The 1%, as well as the 2% that is pending, is for subsidized school teachers that have not received anything at all.
Okay. I will briefly address the issue regarding subsidized schools, because in our initial discussions, once taking the office, this discussion came up regarding the fact that subsidized schools, they receive a lump sum subsidy from government, to which they themselves have to then dictate how that money is distributed. Government itself doesn't actually pay the salaries or the vacation pay of subsidized schools. This is a subsidy transferred directly to the school, and then internally they distribute vacation pay. So when it comes to the issue of subsidized COLA and vacation pay for subsidized schools, that's outside of government's purview specifically. As it relates to the issue of COLA, that was an agreement I know made under the previous government, to the update of which I will have to check with Minister of Finance to see what is the timeline for the indexation of COLA. I know that there was a discussion about why it wasn't possible to pay it in the very beginning. The minister indicated previously that the last 1% addition will be paid for vacation pay, for example, end of the month. But I will verify with her and, of course, let her contact you regarding the 2% overall indexation of COLA for civil servants.
As a clarity, do you know if the school boards, for example, if they had an increase, for example, in the subsidy that would cover the 1%? Because they're saying, the school board is saying they haven't received any money for this. So if you paid civil servant, I'm sure, and teachers that work in public school, then there should be money to pay these teachers that are working for the government school, for the school boards. But then they have to have it, the school boards have to get it, that extra money.
Yeah.
And if they were not given the extra money, how will they pay it?
Yeah, and I think these are one of the many challenges that we have to face. I'm not really aware if they have received an increase, but I can imagine with the fact that we now have to cut 22 million guilders, I think it's actually more than that now on our current budget. This puts the reality in check that we may have to make some adjustments and address these issues. I, as a former civil servant, very much feel the pain of persons who are questioning COLA, because I think for the past 12 years we have received essentially the same exact salary, at least value-wise. But of course, the reality is now with that we have to cut quite a chunk of the budget. We'll have to see, after verify with the Minister of Finance, what has been done, and if those subsidies are impacted in those. I can't imagine that they would be, because salaries are something that government, as a sort of a point of departure, does not cut. But the subsidy may have to be cut then in other areas. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Minister Gums. Stephen, you have the floor.
Mr. You're returning from The Hague, where you serve as the Minister Plenipotentiary. With the incoming cabinet, were you able or privy to meet with the new State Secretary in the interest of St. Maarten, and what was discussed, if you did, during your discussion?
Yeah, no. Thank you, Stephen. And no, unfortunately, we did not meet the new State Secretary. They come into government actually on July 2nd. What we did do, of course, is meet with the outgoing government. I think a lot of what the last couple of weeks for me has been, as in my former role as Minister Plenipotentiary, has been tidying up and tying loose ends. I did sort of convey a message to the press after Kingdom Council of Ministers that we look forward to working with the new government. It's on the basis of accountability and trust. I think that's something that's very important. I think a lot of work has been done, in particular in rebuilding that relationship. And in my time, what I did in particular is have a discussion about how we can push certain issues, particularly energy transition. A lot of the work regarding the TNO report, regarding the energy crisis in St. Maarten, how we can actually access the SDA++ funds and the CRUI funds, which are something that in my previous role as Foreign Affairs, I initiated under the then Prime Minister. So those are things that we spoke about, and in particular, trying to figure out how we can salvage the housing project. Already knowing that I was becoming the Minister of Rumi, that was very critical because we have lost $20 million in a housing project due to negligence from the previous administration. So a lot of my time has really been trying to see how we can salvage those instead of necessarily trying to meet the new government, which protocol-wise is also not allowed, formally at least. Yeah.
Thank you, Minister Gums. Members of the media, are there any further questions for Minister Gums?
We have a lot of questions as Deputy Prime Minister.
As the Minister indicated, he's not answering, so that does bring us to the end of the question and answer sessions. Again, members of the media, any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, June 26, 2024. For rebroadcast, tune into stmartingov.org, St. Maarten Gov Radio 107.9 FM, Tel TV Plus Channel 15, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Maarten, and YouTube channel Government of St. Maarten. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Maarten's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Maarten, I am Rolika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.